when you speak mainstream media, to me, it's that no one else counts except the Democrats and Republicans, because that's all the mainstream media will ever give credit to. And when things are done that are so atrocious, to include a third candidate, the mainstream media sits by and lets it happen. I mean, the biggest case in point was 1992 when Ross Perot got 19.7% of the vote, 1 out of 5, roughly 20%. My old physics teacher would tell me to round up, as you always do in physics, so he got 20%. Well, what happened then, and the mainstream media never even covered it. They didn't even expose what went on in our country. Perot scared the status quo so badly in that election that all the way up until that point, all the debates, presidential debates, had fallen under the National League of Women Voters, which you can argue is essentially a fairly neutral group. They have conservative women, liberal women, independent women, whatever it might be. They were in charge. Yeah. Well, what happened then, because Perot scared them so bad in 92, our illustrious Congress, who I might add is made up of pretty well all Democrats and Republicans and the status quo, well, they took the debates away from the National League of Women. They formed another federal bureaucracy now called the National Debate Committee. And ironically, that committee is appointed and it's headed by the former heads of the Democratic and Republican parties. So now all debates are channeled through this National Debate Committee, and they can make up the rules as they go. Now they determine who gets to debate and who doesn't. They make that decision. This body of people that is not elected, it's corporate. They're appointed. You can't remove them if you disagree with them. But to me, every presidential debate should have at least 4 to 5 people up there.
Well, that's obvious. I mean, how can we ever have real choice if they only keep it to the two parties?
Well, but see, that's it. Just Ralph Nader called it the two-party dictatorship.
Even though national poll after national poll from 2001 had me on the debates, Buchanan on the debates, they want more people on the stage than, 2 major candidates that are basically spouting the same old slogans that they spouted in weeks before on the campaign trail. They're not really debates, they're parallel interviews. And the Debate Commission is a private company created 21 years ago to get rid of the League of Women Voters, which sponsored debates, controlled by the Republican Democratic Party. To this day, they pick the format of the debate, they pick the reporters who will ask the questions.
So you're saying it's a rigged game?
Yeah, it's rigged for the two-party system. No one else is let in. And the sad part is we, the people, stand by. It's our fault. It's our fault because we stand by and sit on our hands and allow it to happen.
Let many voices be heard. Let the First Amendment be used by all Americans. Open up the debate process. Why are we limiting presidential debates? We don't limit weather reports. We don't limit entertainment.
America has broken its own rules, has broken its own laws. It's time for the citizenry of the United States to actually follow its own laws. If we stay steadfast to the Constitution, at least, we won't be hit so hard with that global agenda. Violence in society is not caused by the people. It's caused by the neglect of leadership. And the police are the #1 cause of violence in society. They make the people jittery. They make the people insecure. Plus, if you look up what a police officer is in the Black's Law Dictionary, the only thing the police are supposed to be doing is keeping the peace. And they do not. So whose fault is it when you have violence in society if you're paying taxes to have peace in society and moral justice? The police are supposed to be the epitome of morality. Our children are supposed to look at a police officer and see an example of what a citizen is. Now they fear them. So if our children don't even respect the police, how are they going to respect the law?
The present situation is not the Republic of the United States. What we have is the analogy is that the pirates have come in the middle of the night, they have killed the captain and the crew, and that they have taken complete control of the ship. And this thing that we call the United States government is absolutely an illusion. It has no more connection with the Constitution, the Republic, and the Bill of Rights than the man in the moon.
You know, you go to a doctor and you get a diagnosis. You may not like the diagnosis, but you don't call the doctor names. And you don't get all uptight about it. But when people hear a diagnosis, an economic diagnosis, a geopolitical, political diagnosis, that ruffles their ideology or is counter to their party belief, they really get upset about it. So we only look at things for the way they are, not the way we wish they would be. The panic of 08.com. We knew the panic would come in 08. In November of 2008, we took out the domain name, the collapse of 09. The economic system is collapsing and there's no salvation for it. Current events form future trends. You look what happened during the retail Christmas sales of 2007. We saw women's apparel off 23%. We saw home furnishings and electronics down 27%. We saw luxury items off 35%. These are Depression-era falls. How much more do people have to see before they understand what's happening? When you look at luxury items, understand this thing is collapsing from the top down. Everybody's getting wiped out on this one. This is big. Okay, in 2008, we saw Circuit City, Steve & Barry's, Linens and Things. We saw Sharper Image, Bennigan's, KB Toys go belly up. We're seeing Starbucks, we're seeing Home Depot closing stores. And we're going to see many, many more of them as the year goes on. The question becomes, who is going to rent all of these vacant retail spaces? The answer? Nobody. You're going to see ghost malls. You're going to see empty shops all over. The next level, the commercial real estate sector and the business end. Merrill Lynch mob, the Bear Stearns gang, the Lehman boys, all these people that went belly up or out of business, all these bond companies. Who's going to rent all the vacant commercial office space they're leaving behind, plus the thousands and thousands of others from the Bank of America, the Citigroups, laying off 50,000, 55,000. 1 week in America, we saw some 70,000 jobs evaporate. Who's going to rent all of this empty space? The answer is nobody. You're going to see a commercial real estate collapse that's going to make the residential retail bust look like a kid's game. You're going to see vacant office buildings, vacant malls throughout this country. The collapse of 09. In 08, it was the financial sector. In 09, the commercial real estate sector, and everything else collapses with it. There is no saving the sinking ship. There's too many torpedoes that have been taken.
Zbigniew Brzezinski is a petty Polish aristocrat. He represents a social class called the Szlachta, the lower aristocrats. In German, it's Milchadel, milk nobility, the lowest. And he was trapped in Canada by the Hitler-Stalin Pact. His father was a diplomat serving the government of Pilsudski and this guy Smidley Ridge, right-wing authoritarian Polish governments in the 1930s. He then went to McGill University. He would have gone to Britain. I think he wanted to go to Britain, but he couldn't do it because of various technical considerations. So he then got into Harvard and eventually became the head of the Soviet Affairs Institute at Columbia. I believe that is where he picked up Barack Hussein Obama, Barry Soetoro, between 1981 and 1983, when both Brzezinski and Barry Soetoro were on the same campus, probably in the same department. Look at Obama's graduating thesis, Soviet military disarmament.